Now, staying with that story, the United Democratic Movement is asking for an urgent meeting with Chief Justice Raymond Zondo over the formation of the government. The meeting request comes after the ANC has invited political parties to be a part of the proposed Government of National Unity. Joining us to tell us why the party needs the intervention is from the Chief Justice is UDM leader Bantu Holomisa. Mr. Holomisa, thank you so much for joining us this evening on News at Prime. And I must say, it isn't just the UDM that's seeking this intervention. Of course, it's the PAC, the ACDP, the UAT, as well as Build One South Africa. Why have you sought this intervention?
We would have not sought this intervention had the parties which originally engaged each other in negotiations had agreed. We were expecting, and in fact, there was a legitimate expectation on the part of South Africans that perhaps we will have a government, a coalition government. But unfortunately, it looks like they deadlocked. And you saw the NEC posture, which led to the announcement by its president of the ANC that they want to see a government of national unity. Then we felt, therefore, that the rules of the game will have to be clarified, because the government of national unity implies different meanings to other people as vis-a-vis coalition. So we debated the issue as to whether we should approach the ANC or approach Parliament. We came to the conclusion that the only person who can assist to facilitate a meeting of all these to discuss this concept of government of national unity is the Chief Justice. Chief Justice, you like it or not, currently is a de facto speaker, because we don't have a speaker. So he's a relevant person to say, Mr. Holomisa and your team or your colleagues, I'm not going to sit and preside over this, but I've suggested to my colleagues that let's appoint a retired judge, or that there should be involvement of civil society. We are not married to the fact that he personally must be chairing, must call this meeting, but at least we would feel comfortable, because the ANC is still yet to be given an opportunity to other parties to say, come and present to us, what do you mean about this? What are the implications? How is the parliament going to work? And so on and so on.
Yeah, and I'm glad you clarified that, because, you know, some of our experts and commentators and people have been saying, why has this group of political leaders gone to the Chief Justice? And you say you've gone to him as a matter of them being the de facto speaker
yes,
and not under his role as the Chief Justice.
Well, of course, he is the custodian of our Constitution, after all. But presently, he is a de facto speaker. Let those who are against or arguing against come up with a solution to resolve this impasse. Because we have been told that these people have been negotiating for the last 2 weeks. Others are reported to have gone there and asked for positions. What's going on?
Were you not part of those talks? Talks in the past 2 weeks?
No.
So as the UDM, because we also heard the ANC saying, look, we've been talking to everyone and anyone who's willing to talk to us. As the UDM, has the ANC not reached out to you at all about these negotiations?
No, not as far as I know. But just before I entered your studios, Bugs called me, and then I said, we'll talk after the interview.
What do you think that discussion is going to look like?
I'm sure they want more clarity on why we suggest that this issue of government of national unity must be presented to all of us by them. It's their proposal. We are not going to be spoon-fed. We want to take this also to our constituencies. In the event that there is an emerging consensus amongst the political parties, the next step is going to be whose manifesto is going to guide us. Because 60% of the population have said no to your policies. So we need to be sober and allow each other. No one is going to dictate to anyone when it comes to government of national unity. But if people go to a route of coalition, then it's different, because they would have agreed, they would have agreed on how are they going to run the country, and then we will check how they manage the country.
And in getting some of that clarity, for instance, the last time there was a government of national unity was way back in 1994. Then it was also done differently. It was a different time as well, a different terrain to also make yourself through. But there was also a threshold, a 10% threshold of those political parties that can participate. Would this be some of the clarity that you would need to know as well? Because say that there is a threshold put in at 10% as it was done in 1994, that kicks out a lot of the parties.
We are looking for exactly for those details. We are not looking for positions. We want to know how will this work. If, for instance, you are going to call all of us, we must remind each other, let's interpret what is the meaning of these results. ANC, are you going to be a big brother in this exercise against 60% parties, voters? So we just want clarity. They can come up with a threshold. That threshold, they must table it. Some parties might say it's good, some might say they are not going to be part of that. But we cannot hold the whole country at ransom. We have to move on because the time is against us, and we cannot call for fresh elections, spend another 2-point-something billion rands, whilst the people along the coast are struggling.
And are you also getting calls from your constituency, people who voted for you, wanting clarity to say, what does this mean? Where does this leave your party, the party that they voted for?
That's precisely why we discussed this thing yesterday, and we opted to call, to approach the office of the Chief Justice. Chief Justice has responded by acknowledging receipt of the letter, and we are expecting an elaborated response from him. In the same vein, the president of this country yesterday evening did call me to say, hey, General, I hear your colleagues and you and your colleagues are suggesting the involvement of Chief Justice. Do you think it would be advisable? I said to him, unfortunately, we are not going to go to the ANC, because if you had made that announcement in your capacity as head of state, we would have gone straight to your office. But this is because it's a new concept. We want someone now who is going to be neutral, because the numbers don't allow the ANC to dictate to other parties.
Mr. Holomisa, it seems your phone is very busy lately as well. A call from the president, a call from the SG of the ANC as well. You said you also envision some challenges with this. What would the challenges of this national government of unity be without this clarity? Say we don't have this meeting in time.
Well, the challenges are that we have a deadline. That's point number one. If 14 days elapse, what is the next step? Procedurally, we should be preparing for another fresh elections. But if we as leaders, we agree that let us give ourselves an extension of about a month to try and find each other, that would be in order. The other challenge is, suppose you have a coalition or GNU between, say, amongst the three largest political parties. Who is going to be the official opposition? Because we still need that role to be clarified. You cannot serve in the government of national unity or a coalition government, whereas you are given a mandate to be the second largest party, which means automatically you will be the official opposition. Those challenges, those issues must be clarified.
Yeah, I mean, parties like Action SA, they have made it clear. I mean, the EFF has rejected this agreement as well, but under conditions. You know, without the DA and without the Freedom Front Plus, they're willing to go to the negotiation table. Action SA flat out has said no, absolutely not, and no circumstances will they be working with the ANC. They will actually just play their role from the opposition benches. Is this an option for you to consider as well, because you've done that before anyway?
No. UDM has no conditions or preconditions. We want South Africans to engage amongst each other and interpret the mandate given by the voters. The voters have made it clear that no more one-party dominance, and that you must go out as political parties or politicians to work together. Let us agree on a model, how to do that.
Earlier, when you're talking about which manifesto will then guide that government of national unity, I guess also that's the question that comes a lot about opposing ideologies, opposing parties coming together. What does it ultimately mean when it comes to policies? Will they be able to have conversations of substance about these policies and be able to deliver to their different constituencies? And how do you do that when the DA has promised their constituency to scrap BEE and the ANC has promised its constituency to further it?
Well, unfortunately, someone will have to swallow his or her pride on this one. The key problem we're facing now is the economic-related matters. Since 1994, we have never had a sufficient consensus on what kind of macroeconomic policy must we have. Even the tripartite alliance members, they differ on this issue. Maybe it's our time now, as we suggested during the launch of our manifesto, that we must move towards a national dialogue and finish off the job we didn't finish during CODESA negotiations, the economy and others. But currently, there's no one who can quibble about an ideology to say we want to apply an ideology when we say we need to fix this highway because we need to fix this pipe. It has not broken for a hardline socialist or a capitalist. It has broken for us all. We cannot quibble about the issue of crime. It's affecting everybody. We need to stabilize the country as soon as yesterday.
Yeah, and hopefully then this meeting will take place and convene. But I do need to take a break. I just would like to, before, let you go and take this break quickly. Bantu Holomisa. Mr. Holomisa, just before the break, you know, we also mentioned maybe going back to CODESA negotiations, CODESA talks that were incomplete, that we are now seeing the impacts of.
Well, of course, this is the proposal we have been making from time immemorial to say, guys, we didn't finish our work. Today, the majority citizens of this country are still locked outside the economic participation. We need to address that urgently. Today, we must also look into the question of our education system. But the ANC government have been asked to do this. They had the power. They even had a two-thirds majority at one stage. But they seem to be lost they seem to be lost. So maybe this idea that the voters have given us now to say, no one-party dominance, that means, therefore, we will appoint people on competence basis instead of deploying some nekapums who cannot deliver services, who have no clue what they are talking about. So we want to make sure, therefore, that that national dialogue which we propose on the 2nd of March this year when we launched our manifesto, I heard Mbeki also followed after that saying that there is a need for this, and even President Cyril Ramaphosa. So, but that national dialogue we propose is not like the idea of Mbeki, who was saying he wants a national dialogue to talk about counter-revolutionaries and so on. We are talking about serious business here. Because if we don't move, people are going to revolt against the black government. And that would be an embarrassment of the highest order. So we need to make sure that that national dialogue is not for an event of a weekend. It must be timed at least 12 to 24 months to say we made a mistake here. How do we correct it? Let's have a consensus on this one. Also, we must also remember that in South Africa's black and white conflict, militarily speaking, there was no winner. The leaders at the time decided to negotiate. But we may have to say, did they negotiate a proper deal for the South Africans? It's fine. We must not be held to ransom. Let us be free to discuss this. Black, white, coloreds, and Indians, all of us. No one is going to point fingers and start pointing to say, you are not a South African, you are wrong, but let's correct our mistakes collectively.
And while that is a long-term plan, right now we're dealing with, as you said, a deadline. We have to form a government in a couple of days, yet there are still these outstanding issues. You have indicated that the Chief Justice Raymond Zondo has responded to your letter. He has received it, and you're just waiting for a response now. What happens if that urgent meeting can't be adjourned?
No, we have no veto powers. There were just few small parties. It was an idea, a suggestion, trying to get to know exactly what is the ANC up to. So if the ANC find each other with the so-called big parties on coalition arrangements, they must go ahead and form a government. But once they talk about a government of national unity, they must call everybody. We just want to know how are the rules going to be applied.
It's obviously not your first rodeo, over 2 decades in the National Assembly. What will be different about the 7th administration that you bring?
The difference is, of course, it will not be a one-party dominance. We will definitely, in fact, those who will be negotiating, whether it is at coalition level or at government of national unity, we will discuss the rules which the ANC government always impose on us because we didn't have numbers.
So it's almost like a little coalition within a coalition, an informal one with these other smaller parties.
Because there is no winner. You must not forget that. We're all equal here. I remember I was talking to your colleague one time. He called me that after the results. I said, man, there's been no winner this weekend. There's only Orlando Pirates which has won.
But I mean, some people got 3 seats, like your party, and some got 58 seats, you know, so there is no outright winner, but it is a numbers game as well.
It is a numbers game. That's why coalition, at least I thought they would go that route quickly, find each other quickly. But now, once they talk about government of national unity, they are going to come up with a threshold maybe and so on. They must be open, that's all. We're not as desperate for positions. In my position, particularly myself, I've been offered many positions even when Mandela was still around.
Your parting shots when it comes to this, Mr. Holomisa, and this intervention that you're seeking?
We want a speedy solution so that the country can be expected to be ready to do their work. So no one must come up with phases of anxiety. We need leadership. And those other leaders who are negotiating now, they must move with speed. The interest of the people first, not their positions.
Indeed, interest of the people first. Thank you so much for coming into studio and giving us some of that clarity as well and more insights into this intervention that you're seeking. All the best.